It's coming over.
Worst case scenario,
Hey, sir, how are you?
I do not yet have the agenda.
Hey, I'm Bud Bowman. Nice to meet you. I'll hold my profession against me. It's an update thing.
So good thing.
You're all over. I don't want to get my hopes up too high. You know how the brother or the daddy does when there's a good boyfriend and they're like,
What's that? It's getting fun of my tablet. It's been a day. I believe it. Like I walked in from the conference a little before noon. Her and Tiffany needed me before I got past the door.
It's good to be in.
Sometimes I wish I was.
They're already signed up for the class. I told him about it, and he said they're already signed up. That's pretty good, isn't it? They're ahead of us.
Dulcia, are we ready?
I'm ready, yes, sir.
Is it owl?
Yes.
How long has it been?
I just turned it on.
Ranking call to order, city council meeting June 24th. Mr. City Manager, can you call the roll?
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Ms. Underwood?
Here.
Mr. Exley?
Here.
Mr. Blackwell?
Here.
Ms. Taylor?
Here.
Ms. Riley?
Here.
Tonight we have Pastor Randy Joyner with Redemption Center Church going to do our invocation. And if you'll stand, and then please remember to stand for the pledge. Remain standing.
Good evening. Let us pray. Eternal God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity that we have to come in and conduct business, God. It is our desire that you would be in the midst of us. We pray that all of our decisions are based and undergirded off of you, that the future of our town, the future of this area will be blessed because we are going to put you in it. We ask that whatever decisions are made now, that you would bless the generations that are to come. Bless every person that's representing this town. We ask all of these blessings in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Guys, before we approve the agenda tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Blackwell, and he's got a couple things to talk about.
Tonight we started a new program where we honor veterans in our neighborhood and local community, and tonight we're going to honor James Sapp. A lot of you probably know him, so I got a little bio here I'm going to read, and then I'm going to present something to his family that's here with us tonight. Staff Sergeant James T. Sapp began his military service on July 11th, 1942 at Fort McPherson, Georgia. Completed basic training and then being assigned as a cadre member at the Army Air Force School in Miami Beach, Florida. He opted instead to join the newly formed airborne units, graduating from jump school on 11 December 1942. Staff Sergeant Sapp then attended Parachute Repairman, which is a rigger school, prior to joining the 82nd Airborne in New York in April of 1943. There he served as a mortarman in headquarters company, 2nd Battalion, 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment, a role he thoroughly enjoyed. Over 29 months overseas, he operated in Northern Africa, Sicily, Italy, Holland, England, and Germany. Staff Sergeant Sapp participated in 3 combat jumps and the pivotal Battle of the Bulge. Notably, he contributed to the liberation of a Nazi concentration camp and witnessed the historic meeting between U.S. and Russian forces in Germany. During his overseas tenure, he spent 371 days engaged in combat. Staff Sergeant Sapp received an honorable discharge from Camp Gordon, Georgia on 26 September 1945. His awards and decorations include the Bronze Star, Good Conduct Medal, Presidential Unit Citation, and European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with 6 campaign stars and a bronze arrowhead. He also earned the World War II Victory Medal, Army Occupation Medal, Combat Infantry Badge, Belgium, forgive my pronunciation, Forgeray, and the Parachutes Badge with 3 combat jump stars. Despite leaving school at the age of 12 after completing only the 6th grade, Staff Sergeant Sapp excelled in every endeavor he pursued. Prior to enlisting in the Army, he worked at the sugar refinery. Post-war, he joined Union Camp and managed a family farm in Guyton. Additionally, he became skilled in clock repair, something I didn't know. Throughout his life, Staff Sergeant Sapp remained committed to a promise he made upon returning from the war, to embody the ideals of an American worth dying for, in honor of those who sacrificed their lives during World War II to secure global peace. Because of his strong beliefs in this, Mr. Sapp spent many years giving speeches at local schools to educate children on the importance of being a good, patriotic citizen. On January 12th, 1947, he married Mrs. Mary Wendelken. Together they raised 2 children, Beverly and Jimmy, and shared more than 60 years of unwavering companionship until Mrs. Mary Wendelken passed in September 21st, 2007, at the age of 93. And subsequent 15 years, Mr. Sapp dedicated himself to being the best father, grandfather, and great-grandfather possible. He passed away on August 31st, 2023 at the age of 101. If I could have a Sapp family come forward. We have a beautiful plaque presented to the family of Staff Sergeant James T. Sapp, Lincoln, Georgia City Council members, and have nominated you as the Hero of the Month for June 2024. He was in the U.S. Army 82nd Airborne from 1942 to 1946.
He loves serving his country, and he loves going to the schools and sharing with the children of his war stories. But first and above all, he loved his God.
Beverly, let's get your whole family in the picture. Let's get all the family.
All right, let's come to
So, one more thing before we start on the agenda, wanted to, so while we're talking about heroes and freedom and things like that, we wanted to mention a few things here tonight. And I'm gonna read this out, because I can't memorize anything. So, as I reflected on the Stars and Stripes Freedom Party, I thought about what freedom means to everyone July 4th, 1776. It's a date that we must all remember because that date is the date that the founding fathers signed our independence. Another crucial date was January 1, 1863, when President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And another was June 19, 1865. That was when news finally arrived in Texas that freedom was not negotiable any longer. So please keep these things in mind as we go through the holidays of freedom and never stop making strides to unify. All we have is each other, and we work better together. So that was a little tough to get through, but anyway, on top of that, another thing that we want to talk about was the 2024 Rankin Stars and Stripes Freedom Party. And, you know, it being an unprecedented success, showcasing the true spirit and unity of our community. From the decorated floats to the lively performances, the hot dog eating contest, finally hearing hundreds of our youth laughing as they went back and forth up the water slides, and I think Michelle mentioned that to me in the middle of it. The event was a testament to the hard work and dedication of everyone involved, making it an unforgettable celebration of our nation's independence. The vibrant atmosphere filled with laughter, music, and patriotism truly highlighted the essence of Lincoln's community spirit. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to all the community partners who participated and to the tireless staff members from our recreation department and everyone else who stepped up when they didn't have to in order to make this event possible. Your efforts and collaboration turned this vision into reality, creating an amazing experience for all residents, and for that, you are all commended. This celebration was yet another example of how the city of Rankin can come together to achieve something extraordinary, reinforcing our sense of community and shared pride. Thank you to everyone who played a part in making the 2024 Rankin Stars and Stripes Freedom Party a remarkable success. All right, time to get down to business. We need the approval for the agenda for tonight, Monday, June the 24th. Got a motion? Second. Got a motion by Ms. Riley, a second by Mr. Scott. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Then we're gonna move into approving the minutes from the June 10th meeting. Anybody got any questions or changes to that? Mr. Blackman?
I got two corrections. Under 6, under administrative reports, the first line by the city manager says get out, it should be get out. Instead of get out, it should say get out.
I missed that.
I just wanted to add at the very end, on the next page, we was discussing Buck Bagley last council meeting, and it was a little fuzzy on what that was about, so I wanted to add, when he went missing during World War II, then 2 weeks ago, his remains were identified. So that was the only corrections or additions I had for the minutes from last council meeting.
Anybody else? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I got a motion by Mr. Scott, I got a second by Mr. Blackwell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Guys, public comments, the comments shall pertain to agenda items only. Should you wish to appear before council, forms can be found in City Hall, and just remember, administrative reports are not agenda items, so it has to be on agenda item if you want to come forward. And with that being said, I want to turn the meeting over to the public hearing officer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Open now for public hearing is an ordinance by the mayor and city council for the city of Rankin, repealing the code of the city of Rankin, Georgia, chapter 90, that's zoning and growth management. Article 3, general provisions, section 90-62, that's access to public street required. Section -65, that's off-street parking and unloading. Section 90-66, that's obstruction division at street intersections. Section 90-70, designated on-street parking. Section 90-90 streets, section 90-91 service or curbside lanes. Section 90-97, trespass by construction on public right-of-way. And the entirety of Article 4, that's sign regulations, all to be replaced in Chapter 90, zoning and growth management, sections 90-62, access to public street required, through 90-90 reserved, to provide for notice, to provide for severability, to provide an effective date, and to repeal all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and for other purposes. That ends my tongue twister. Ms. Lewis, do you have any background you'd like to offer?
Okay, so these are the next two sections that we're bringing forward with the Unified Development Ordinance. So these deal with parking in streets and signs. So with parking, probably the biggest change, we made a couple of pretty significant changes. We added a parking table. As I've said before, the parking previously was just by zoning district. So it didn't matter whether you had a restaurant or a warehouse in a zoning district, your parking was the same. And we all know that that isn't accurate. So we have developed a parking table that provides parking based on use. The other thing that we did, we made several changes, but the kind of the significant ones were to also provide a diagram for site triangle. Sometimes site triangle is hard for people to understand. We're trying to get them to come into compliance. Basically, when you come up to an intersection, you want to be able to see clearly, and so this will help us to explain to people when they need to shift a sign or trim landscaping, anything like that. This diagram will help us. With signs, we reorganized it a little bit. We added some regulations for banners. If you remember, last year we had somebody come forward that wanted us to increase the size of banners. We didn't do that. However, what we did do was just add some banner regulations. We had no regulations related to banners, so now we at least have that in there. No change to the size requirements, though. So, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
Going back to the site.
Triangle.
Did y'all go into consideration of where like 90-degree curves in some of our city streets, especially in the neighborhoods where shrubbery and other things like that may grow higher than 3 feet or so and block your view as you go around the curve?
Right, and we're starting, so Devin, our code enforcement officer, has been going out to work with some of those, especially those where we've gotten complaints or that he observes or somebody else on staff observes when they're out. And then but people do have trouble kind of understanding it. And so this, once adopted, will really help us to explain it to people. But yes, we are starting to go to intersections that do have, that are problematic, where you have to kind of almost pull up into the road and start to get people to make changes where we can.
So Delvin and I, we 3 weeks ago, John?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, we rode out and identified some of those areas where we had to go park past stop sign. And to see the visibility, to have people lay down, and we had a few of those, but we ran out and he listed a whole bunch of them. Yeah.
Well, mine was where in some of the neighborhoods, you got roads going around and they're in a square and it's like a 90-degree turn, and some residents will, if there's a utility in that area, they will plant shrubbery to hide the utility stuff. And so eventually it grows up and you can't see around the curve. And I've experienced that in a couple of neighborhoods here. And the other question I was gonna bring up, some of this has changed a little bit, correct? As far as the distance and things like that in the whole section that we're talking about tonight.
for the entire,
I mean, nothing was changed dramatically is what I guess I'm asking, because I was wondering about those that are may come out of compliance, will they won't be getting cited until they make a change, I guess.
That's correct, and we're really trying to do education first with everything that we're adopting. We try to do that in general anyway. We try to get compliance. We try not to have to write a lot of citations if we don't have to, just because it's better, for everybody around if we don't have to go through the citation process, if we can get people to come into compliance, because ultimately that's what we want. So,
I was looking at the one that came particular in mind was the parking for a residential house, and the length of the driveway or whatnot. And I was thinking, well, in Town Park, they got those townhomes and they have driveways, but they're not gonna be, I believe it was 25 feet. So they automatically would be out of compliance, but they were.
right, so
built
they would
before-
be.
Most of them were built and approved before this goes into effect.
Absolutely, so they would be considered non-conforming, and so we will
Okay.
find some of that as we go forward. We will create some non-conformities, but as long as they, went through the site plan approval process and were approved that way, then nothing, if they would go to make drastic changes, then they would have to come into compliance, but let's say they just needed to resurface, they wouldn't have to come into compliance.
So just looking at your, off-street parking and unloading your table that's in here, and then driving down 21 and just thinking about those businesses. Almost every building that was built in the 90s is not in compliance with this. Almost every single one. The gate station would have not been in compliance. I'm not in compliance. El Real's not in compliance. 108's not in compliance. Where did we get these numbers? Like, how is every business not in compliance with what we're trying to put in place?
Well, I think it was a combination of things. I think the numbers in the previous code were very low for what they required for parking. And then this was our consultant looking at a variety of places that she has written codes for, looking at parking standards that are put out by the American Planning Association, and developing these numbers based on that.
So
And I will say too, like, we've always provided flexibility, even the way the code's written now. If somebody can show that they don't need the parking that's required, or if they need more parking than what's required, then we work with them to either have less parking or have more parking. So for example, Chick-fil-A, like, by their square footage, would have been required to have, I think, 19 spaces, and they have 90, so.
Sure, where are we with the usage change? If someone goes in and they build that building with 25, 30 spots, somebody comes in that requires less, maybe a pickup, drop off. That's adjustable, we watching those that goes into those areas that has the lower numbers of parking space.
So right now it hasn't been an issue because the parking is pretty much the same across the board, no matter what district you're in, no matter what use you have. But yes, under this new code, if somebody went in and they required less parking, then if they wanted to take some of that parking out, they could. If they required more parking, we would have to work with them to see if it was possible to put more parking on the site.
Yeah, that's my concern.
So for an example, Mr. Scott, I'm sorry. For example, say you changed the use, say you had a doctor's office, and that use ended up becoming an assembly use, like a church wanted to locate there. That would require more parking. So that's what, it can go both ways on there, and we try to be mindful of that. And if you remember, and Ms. Taylor, Mr. Blackwell, when we approved the shopping center and the parking lot of Kroger, we had the flexibility of you had parking within a certain proximity of you. So we do take that into account. We try to be as mindful of that, like Ms. Lewis said, as possible. So.
And I heard Brandy loud and clear. It's, when you go into different cities, you can't cookie cut. You can't
That's
have a
what this
cookie
feels
cutter
like.
approach, because you pretty much gotta ride through our city
Right.
and base it off of what we have, because, our city's different. It's the widening of 21, a long time ago caused us to encroach on those properties. So at some point, I don't wanna go down the rabbit hole.
So my
with it, but-
concern is, like, I know that I'm getting ready to repave my parking lot. When I go to do that, are you gonna require me to come in line with
No.
this? Why not?
Because you're a legal nonconformity.
Your use is not changing, your use is not changing.
Right.
You're just fixing your parking lot.
To someone else, like.
They would never be able to run the same type of business.
No, if they're running the same type of business, yes. If you sold it to somebody that was running, like Jonathan's example, a more intense use, then they would have to, add additional parking for that
No,
use.
that is something
But
that
you
can
guys
also-
will be open to talking with them.
That's correct, and there's also the variance
Case by
component. They
case
can come in and request a
Yeah,
variance for
yeah.
parking as well,
Variance is
for
all.
something to happen.
Yeah.
That is a legitimate way that they could do that too as
And I
well.
think we have to realize, even though, and I agree that we need to make sure that we protect the existing businesses, but I think what our code's doing is preparing us for the future. As we become more urban, we're gonna have more crowds, and we're gonna need to have more, progressive parking requirements, so, but we still need to look out for Brandy, because what if Brandy wants to add on to her restaurant?
Well, it's not just
She's gonna-
me, I mean, it's
Well,
every.
Well, I'm just using you as an example, so what if she wants to add on to her restaurant? Is her parking spaces okay?
Well, now,
That's gonna be the critical part.
When you start changing the nature of the
Expanding
use
the
by
square
expanding
footage.
it will get evaluated on a case-by-case basis, but, with staff, we just ask that you'll allow us to use some common sense sometimes, and we will make sure that there are times when there will be exceptions, and if they're such extreme to where Ms. Lewis or myself, cannot approve them, we would encourage them to come to you all for variance. It wouldn't just be a flat no, we would give them options on how to make it
Right,
happen.
but there's only so much land around 108 that they could do something, so if they go and choose to do something to expand a little bit, then they're gonna be out of compliance here, and I know that they have the desire to do some things and should be able to do some of them.
But they would be allowed
This
to
is
do
not,
Mhm. They would be allowed to apply for that variance, they
Mhm.
would.
okay.
That's exactly right.
Right, and we trust people to know, like when I say we're gonna work with people, we trust people to know how their businesses are run. So if you're telling me that you need less parking or more parking, I mean, I'm generally gonna believe you, cause it doesn't do you any good to have not enough parking, and we certainly don't wanna see sites overparked, so.
I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just gonna say what I feel. I feel like this is cookie cutter, and while I trust you, Terry, you're not always gonna be here. And that's my concern, is 5 years down the road, if you're no longer here, who is in that position, and are they gonna do this, feel the same way to honor it? Who's gonna be sitting on council to honor a variance for businesses who've been here for a long time? I feel like we might be locking some people into some things that just aren't doable.
Okay, well, we have time before first reading, so I'm happy to take these numbers, to talk to our consultant, and to look at some businesses around and see if we need to make some adjustments before we get to first reading.
I would, yeah, I'd like something, just look at what we've already got out
Okay.
there, because when I drove down 21 and just started looking, if it wasn't a, chain type business, it's out of compliance.
Okay,
And those are the people that honestly we need to be protecting the most.
Well, 108 doesn't have enough parking, cause they
They
park
don't.
in our place.
Right.
And neither does El Real.
Everybody parks
Neither
in
do
their
I.
house.
The dentist office next
Yeah.
door.
All right.
Just don't.
That's a good problem to have for them.
Anybody else got any questions for Terry or?
thank y'all.
Thank you.
At this point, if any other member of the public would like to come up and offer comment on this specific ordinance, you're welcome to do so. Seeing none, I hereby close the public hearing on this issue and turn the meeting back over to Mayor Exley.
All right, thank you. So during our State of the City address, I made some comments about, our rec department and the things that we've really been, talking about and the excitement over our rec department. But also, keep in mind that we have fine arts, we have special needs, and we have all of those things. So, that is very important to other people. So when I made those comments, I had Effingham Artists reach out to me, Miss Jarrell. Am I right?
You were right.
All right. I've had it wrote down, separated. So, anyway, she reached out to me and said that she was really excited about, wanting to do a little small presentation of what Effingham artists do, so I'm gonna turn it over to her.
Thank you. And good evening, council and Mayor Exley. I'm Lindsay Giroux. I am an artist and an educator at South Effingham High School. I've served Effingham County since 2013 in art education. I'm the mentor of the National Art Honor Society, and I'm also the organizer for the County Art Show. My experience with community programs began in 2006 at the Averitt Center for the Arts in Statesboro, and I've worked with the Savannah Cultural Arts Center. And I also moved to Effingham as a child. So when I moved here, Rincon has grown tremendously from one high school to two, from the country to crowded with developments and strip malls, and multitudes of people have come. However, with the cultural arts, I always find myself traveling to Savannah or to Statesboro to find visual arts, theater, dance, and music. And I always have to recommend that my friends and my students do the same. You got it? Okay, there you are. Okay, all right.
I'm sneaky.
With this need, I founded Effingham Artist, Community Art Association. Thank you. So with Effingham Artist, our mission is to provide accessible cultural experiences that enrich and inspire our community. We strive to build a platform for visual artists to collaborate, showcase their work, and encourage visual arts engagement within our community. There's 4 levels to this plan. The first is to create community connections. Next is to foster community involvement. I'd like to assemble an arts council, and with that we can support a more vibrant community. Thank you. My first goal with Effingham Artists is to create a community network of artists and art supporters, our businesses. Adrienne Weber of Realty Companies has been a wonderful business partner so far, and she has graciously provided her space to us. She hosted an art show June 7th where 14 artists, including myself, showcased their work and sold their pieces. We had an amazing turnout. It was shoulder to shoulder, and we ended up staying open an hour later than we anticipated. Great first art show. Effingham Artists had an art meetup recently on June 18th. I capped the enrollment at 16 because of space limitations. And we had a still life set up, easels, and we were able to meet and greet and network as artists, professional artists. It was wonderful. We want to encourage our members to create artwork in an exhibit within this county. Often, as an exhibiting artist, I have to find other avenues. In Savannah, I'm a member of the Savannah Art Association, I'm a member of a couple galleries, and it's just really hard to find a place in town to participate. So far, I have also partnered with Effingham Community Orchestra and the Savannah Art Association to further our mission. We plan on displaying artwork at the orchestra's Christmas program, and Savannah Art Association and Effingham Artists are going to have a mutual membership, so that if you become a member of one, you have the opportunity to exhibit with the other, and vice versa. And I think that will really expand our reach. I've reached out to Live Oak Public Libraries about displaying artwork and hosting visual arts workshops there. And I've also talked to the Springfield Development Authority about us participating in First Fridays by displaying artwork, having activities for the children. I'm interested in bringing visual arts programming to the Mars and just more cultural experiences for our community. In order to foster community involvement, my first step was the artist meetups, and that first one, amazing support in our socials, really. I am a huge fan of art camps, after school programs, classes, and workshops for children and adults. I've taught at all grade levels, and I think that it's a wonderful avenue for the city. I would also like to see fiscal support of public art. Think walking trails, playgrounds, and there's a program called Art the Box that covers unsightly electrical boxes with community artwork. There's a lot of wonderful ideas out there. I would like to find a larger space for our artist meetups, and I've spoke with Mayor Exley about the Heinley Center and specifically, and we have tons of municipal buildings that I feel like could be more utilized. Now, before the building of the rec center, we could go ahead and start using those community spaces to have more life in them. Maybe opening them up for nonprofits, community arts classes, things like that. Even some communities have dance or martial arts programs after school, things like that. Ultimately, once Effingham Artists forms either as a 501c3 or Effingham forms an arts council, we would have access to all kinds of grants and sponsorship to help us achieve these dreams. Thank you. So as far as assembling an arts council, there are many resources afforded to nonprofit agencies for community building through arts. This is one of my passions and something that I've researched thoroughly through my master's program. These grants could match donor contributions and even fully fund some projects under the right circumstances. For a job of this magnitude, though, I would like to encourage the city of Rincon in assembling an arts council. And I would also like to request that we combine forces with the 3 main municipalities in order to get a full support for Effingham County in navigating this rapid growth. A small step in this direction would be to create a task force. This task force can identify specific needs of the community in visual arts, music, dance, drama, special education, and elderly care. By creating this case study of surrounding areas to see what's currently available to our neighbors, we can use that information and the projections to allocate resources and help us shape supporting the arts in our area. So this is just a really brief case study just to give you a taste of what Effingham already has and what we don't have. Compared to our surrounding counties, almost all the counties neighboring us have had arts associations for some time. Savannah's had a community art association since 1920. To give you context for that, I incorporated our art association less than a month ago. And we already have 14 members. We're growing very rapidly. As far as an arts council go, we do not have one at this time, but all the surrounding counties do. In most of the counties, those arts councils are centered in the county seat and have community participation. As far as the Board of Education goes, our surrounding counties, most have fine arts programs and fine arts centers, and I'm very happy to say that Effingham County School District's breaking ground on theirs July 17th. Now, what that means for our community is chances to bring in more performing arts, chances for artists to exhibit, but still it's not a city-run program. Now, as far as a city-run program, the reason that I reached out to Mayor Exley was because the rec center proposal is an amazing opportunity to shape our future and to provide these opportunities for our children. In Statesboro, they have the Averett Center and the Bullitt County Rec Department. Both offer after-school programs and adult programs, continuing ed, things like that. In Richmond Hill, they have so many resources available. It's absolutely amazing what they have for the youngest of children all the way up to elderly. And there's very many programs within the municipality that supports those. I just heard recently that they even have a busing program from the elementary schools that will take them to these county-sponsored or city-sponsored after-school programs in dance, karate, fine arts, and then take them back to their child care center so the parents have full support from their community. Something that just would be, as a mother, would be amazing. And in Savannah, the Savannah Cultural Arts Center is just one facet of the program available. They also have programs like Loop It Up, which is a 501c3 that works with children, and they have the rec department and things like that. And there's all these other independent community-run organizations in Savannah that we just don't have access to here. But the need is there. So, in conclusion, Effingham Artists Art Association is seeking members and community partners to grow so that we can have meetups and socials to support our adult artists now. We also would like to encourage fiscal support of community art projects. And as I said before, created an arts council and a task force to help guide policy and planning for arts in the future. This council can help track progress and manage fine arts projects. Thank you for your time. Do you guys have any questions?
I'd like to, I think the stars are kind of colliding.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, Michelle and I rode the streets of Rincon.
Yes.
And I'm familiar with the cows in Chicago, the turtles on Tybee, and I said, what can Rincon have? And we actually saw some examples of them making artwork out of the mechanical box covers.
Yes.
So we've actually looked at those, but.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But 2 years ago, we asked about murals at our ballpark for photographs. And so we reached out to a local artist we know, Lisa Milner, who was working on those. She's already presented some to beautification.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That we're already working on. So we're already working on murals at the ballpark. So
Yes.
I think it'd be really great to connect you and Lisa.
That'd be fabulous, yeah.
Because we're looking at, but I think you need to meet with Shannon because she's talking about having art
Shannon.
classes at the rec center. So we're already,
Okay.
we're kind of already moving in this direction. Shannon's
Wonderful.
talking about stuff now, so the stars have aligned, so.
That's
here
beautiful
we
to
are.
hear.
Here we
Yes,
are.
yes, okay.
And before you guys leave, we would like to give you all a token, a recognition award from the city at this point. We know you guys are just getting started, but we want to present this to the Effingham artist. In sincere appreciation for your dedication and service and outstanding accomplishments as of today, June 24th, 2024.
Thank you very much.
So, this will get bigger.
Thank you very much.
I would even like to have, the symphony, like on the golf course one time, like the landings does. It's
Well,
very-
I think that's a brilliant idea.
We were just, Karen Blackwell was just asking about the symphony at the park, having a picnic in the park.
Yes,
She was just mentioning that the other day. I'm telling you, the stars have aligned. So.
I think an evening with the arts would be wonderful in the
yes,
park.
So there you go.
That's fantastic. Thank you guys for this honor.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Just as important.
Now, I promise we're gonna move on to business. Thank you for coming, Lindsay, we appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So we're gonna move into the consent agenda. We're voting on the second reading of the ordinance by mayor and city council for the city of Lincoln, repealing the code of the city of Lincoln. And I'm just gonna stop right there.
And there will be one change, for that approval, and I'm gonna ask Terry to come up and just let you guys know, there's one sentence, under one of those ordinances, that we just wanna remind you guys about. I know it's a little, against what the consent agenda is, but it's just one little change so that you guys know before you approve.
So what we're proposing to do, as you know, we had made some changes to allow commercial vehicles with more than 2 axles, as long as they met certain conditions. And so the only condition that we've added, other than what you already saw at first reading, was that the property does not abut or cross a creek, stream, wetland, or other water body. So that would be the only change.
Will you let them know what section that's in, please?
Sure, it is in, it's under prohibited uses. So in your, document, it would be page 36. Prohibited uses 2, and then 2 little i's, and we would just, in that list of conditions of A through F, we would just be adding an additional one there.
Any questions or comments on that? Motion's in order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Scott, second by Ms. Taylor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move into new business. Presentation by Davenport and Company. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, sir. As they make their way up, if you all remember, several months ago, we did enter into a financial services agreement for financial advisors. And this is one of the deliverables from Davenport and Company. They're gonna kind of give you what I'm gonna consider an exciting overview. This is not an audit. This is kind of a financial position statement, so to speak. And we got Mr. Ricardo Cornejo and Mr. Courtney Rogers here on behalf of Davenport.
You can flip them.
You can just point.
Okay, Mayor, council members, good to see you this evening. I'm gonna use this, so I don't have to go back and forth. So, I'll just point at you as I flip the slides. Since this is the first time I've been with you guys, otherwise I should have had a piece of paper and just flip that way. It's okay, we'll see how long the battery lasts. But, as Jonathan may have told you all in the past, we've worked together at his previous, location, and so he's seen the work we've done in terms of putting policies and things like that together. And so when he got here, he said, hey, I need you to look at our policies and let's update them and see what we need to add and bring them up to today's standards. With the growth that you all have seen or are gonna be seeing, you know, someday down the road, you might need to go to the credit market for either a bank loan, a loan from somebody, one of the agencies at the state, or possibly getting a bond rating. And so these are the type of things that those creditors are going to want to see, that you've got a fund balance policy, that you've got debt policies. And we also went and looked at some other types of policies, so we're going to get into that. And as a part of looking at that, some of the things we wanted to do for ourselves, is kind of look back and see what historically, how your finances have looked. And so I'm pleased to report as we go through this, you'll see you guys have been in really good shape the last several years and have built your fund balance up nicely. So you're working from a point of strength, which is good. So if we go to the first page, just kind of talking through the overview again. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at financial trends from the general fund and the water and sewer fund. We're going to use some peer comparisons. So there are two main rating agencies, Moody's and Standard & Poor's, and we have both their databases, and we also sometimes just have to go to audits for some of the folks who aren't rated. And so we're going to kind of use a mix of that in terms of some of the cities in the area, just kind of give you a sense of how you look versus those folks. We're going to look at your current debt profile, where you stand. We're going to look at debt capacity. So if there are projects that you may be thinking about, kind of give you a sense of, think of it as a credit card loan. You know, what is our credit? We think of capacity as more of a limit from a credit card standpoint, and then affordability is, how do we pay it back? And we're not going to get into that part tonight, but we're going to look at least the capacity side. And then we'll talk about, and I'm happy to go down, I know got a sort of limited time tonight, but happy to go down and answer questions, but I'll go quickly on some of these slides. We'll talk about how we go about looking for funding, if that is something that we end up needing to do down the road, and then we'll go through some of the highlights of the policies that we're going to, you've seen the actual document. We're not asking you to adopt it tonight. We want to just kind of give you an overview and let you ask questions. And then if you have questions, we can answer those. And then at some point in the future, we hope to have you look at them and adopt those policies. So we'll go firstly to kind of a historical. We look back at the general fund over the last 5 years. Really, we look at the bottom line, and that is, at the end of the day, are revenues exceeding expenditures and before you actually do some transfers in and out. And other than in 2018, when you basically broke even, you've had positive results in 19, 20, crazy years of COVID, 20 and 21, and even in 22. So things are looking positive there. You've been able to add to fund balance. You'll see that in a chart a little bit later. You might say, well, why is fund balance important? You know, if you have a constituent that comes up and says, why do we have so much money in the bank? Well, cities and counties operate a little differently. You don't get revenues periodically. You get revenues a lot of times, one big lump a year. So you've got to have enough funds on hand to operate for 12 months. And we only measure it at one point in time, and that's usually at the end of your fiscal year. And so that's the measuring point. So depending upon when you're getting those revenues, it's important to have a certain amount of money in hand to be able to pay your bills month to month. You also need to have money on hand in case there's a financial situation like a natural occurrence, like a hurricane comes in. FEMA doesn't come in with money. They come in and say, we'll help you, but they reimburse you later. So you gotta have money on hand to take care of whatever needs to get yourself back on your feet, and then later they reimburse you. So you gotta have fund balance for disasters and things like that might happen. Unforeseen expenditures, revenues decline in a year and you don't foresee that, you wanna have funds on hand for that. Also to pre-fund projects, and just in general, creditors wanna see that you've got some fund balance in hand in case something goes wrong. And so that's really important. So on the next slide, you can see very nicely you've built that fund balance up over the last 5 years. And so you've gone from about 24% to well in excess of your expenditure budget. And right now, what our thought is, because you're growing and because you've got some investments that you're going to be needing to make as this growth comes on, we're suggesting that we start out with a policy of the greater of $5 million, so at least $5 million in the bank, or 75% of your annual expenditures. That reason that we picked 75% is, one of the things I've learned over the years is that S&P actually gives you a little bit of a bonus when you're at 75% or greater. If you're way higher than that, you don't get any more of the bonus, but 75% is sort of and so like if you've got a high debt level, you can offset that with a very high fund balance level. And so because of our size at the moment, you may need to issue some debt for some project that's out there that may be larger than normal. So this is going to help offset that. that's something that we may adjust as you get larger. 10 years down the road, you might say 75% is too much because our budget's gotten so big. And so we may want to pare that back at some point. But right now, again, 5 million I think is a good minimum number because things just cost a lot these days. So if something drastic happens, that'll be, you've got some money in the bank. Right now you're at 8, so you don't have to go find that money. You've got the 5 million, and I think that's just a good place to start. Because these policies are things that you do want to look at over time and evaluate every so many years. So as a comparison, kind of where you are versus some of your, again, this is the first slide that gives you a comparison. The peer median is basically everyone you see on the chart. You've got Guyton and Springfield, which of course are in the county, and then you've got other cities that are nearby. We use just really geographic for this particular chart, just to show you where you are. And I failed to mention this early on, but as many of you may know, for the public who may not know, we don't have a bond rating right now as a city. You've not needed to go out and get a bond rating. So that's something that maybe down the road we might need, but at the moment you don't have a bond rating. And some of these folks don't have bond ratings as well. Statesboro does, we work with them. The others I'm not sure about. So then the next slide actually shows you, and this is the way that to try to compare more of an apples and apples is percentage of your budget, because depending upon size, obviously the city of Atlanta is going to have a lot more money in their fund balance than you do. But let's look at it as a percentage of budget. In this case, we use expenditures, and you can see that you're 175% of expenditures. Bloomingdale is just a shade over 150. You can see Pooler's right about 100%. So you're higher than most. So that shows you that you guys are working from strength right now in terms of where the fund balance is. The other thing we like to look at is tax digest, because obviously that's where some of the revenues come from, a big chunk. And that's something that you've obviously seen some nice growth over the last couple of years as things have been taken off post-COVID. You can see that you've grown 12.5%, almost 13% in 22, another almost 30% in 23, and I'm sure that numbers continue to go in 24. When we look at that on a chart basis, you can see where you stand. Obviously, size can make a difference here. Pooler and Statesboro are a little bit larger. You can see in Garden City with a lot of the warehouses and things have they've grown. And then on the next slide, one of the things we like to look at is compared on a per capita basis, called full value per capita. And the reason we use value versus full value versus assessed value is that when we're talking to, let's say, the rating agencies who are doing national ratings, they want to be able to compare apples and apples. And while Georgia uses 40% of value, if you will, some states use 100%. And so to be able to compare an apples to apples, we use full value as that guideline here. And 100,000 is a very meaningful number. That's a number the rating agencies like to kind of see. You get above that number, that gives you some strength. On the next slide, we just kind of give you a sense that, again, we talked about population just a moment ago. You can kind of see where you stand versus those others, with Statesboro and Poole a little bit larger. But again, that's why we do some of those per capita and percentage comparisons. And again, on the next slide, you can see that full value per capita puts you in there, right in the middle of that group, if you will. You've got three there at the bottom, 3 that are ahead, 3 that are behind, and you can right there with Guyton and Springfield on full value per capita. So then we switch to the water and sewer side. Again, we'll kind of take a look at that. And I'll mention that when we were talking about policies, we decided not to do water and sewer at this time, that we really were focusing on the general fund, and later as we get to talking a little bit more with staff about what the needs are down the road, we'll probably come back to you with some policies, something on the order of like debt service on a coverage basis. Essentially that is net revenues divided by debt service. And then the other one would be days cash on hand, which we're going to talk about in a minute, which is how many days can you operate if you had no more revenues coming in. And you'll see you're in pretty good shape there. But going back to coverage, this chart shows us that when you look at how much revenue is available to pay debt service, when you take into account all of the different revenues, impact fees, transfers that come in, you can see you're well in excess of 2 times. And that's kind of a number that the agencies like to see is well above 2 times, since you're in good shape there. Have some ability to take on some more if we need to. And then from a comparison standpoint, you can see where you stack up in terms of all of the revenues. Springfield's a little bit ahead at the moment, and Pooler and Statesboro, but you're right there with those guys in terms of being sort of at the top of this group. And then, as I mentioned, days cash on hand on the next slide is really taking your unrestricted cash, dividing it by, taking your expenses, dividing it by the number of days in the year, and coming up with how many dollars per day you need to operate. And you can see that right now, you're, basically, almost 1,800 days, which, is about 4 years, if you will. So that's a very strong number. For, I would say, my very highest growth clients, we tend to see 2 to 3 times, 2 to 3 years. So you're well in excess of that. But at the same time, you think about it, $10 million on a utility system, you know, when we're talking about $50 million for plants, is not a lot of money. So someone might say, well, you've got way more than you need, but we know there are possible needs out there with the growth that may be coming, or probably is coming, that we'll need to take on. And that's where we want to have some more discussions down the road on that front. When you look at the comparison, you'll see you look very well versus others. You can even Garden City, Guyton, Springfield both have over 1,000 days cash, so not out of the question in terms of where your numbers are. So where are you right now with debt? So one more slide there, please, sir. You do not have any governmental debt right now. So there's no debt on the general fund, no general government debt. I know that we're talking about possible city hall complex and things like that. That may or may not require some debt. So that's something that you'll see in a minute. You've got some capacity to take on if you need to. But we do have some utility debt. So right now, a little over $5 million debt service. You can see it's very front loaded, basically about 4 years, or actually since we're basically through 24, really in about 3 years, you have a pretty good drop off there. And you'll see this thing called payout ratio. Basically it's saying that 73% of your principal is going to be paid out in the next 10 years. It's a measure that creditors look at to see how fast, how rapidly you're paying your debt down. For a utility system that typically, utility projects will go 30 years in terms of average lives, whereas on the general government side, we usually get 20 years. This is actually very rapid. 40% is kind of a number we typically see on the utility side. So we've got some, got room to be able to take on, when that debt drops off, you can replace that and be able to take care of some of the utility needs you have out there. One thing I'll mention too is that some of that debt, you'll notice, is GFA loans. I don't know, some of you may have been at the conference this weekend where we were, and some of the things we've been getting from GFA ourselves. GFA has got more demands than they have dollars to actually give out. And so, depending upon, they've basically used to be 25 million per project. Now they've dropped that down to 10 to 12, depending upon which pool it's coming from. So people are having to find dollars in other places. And so that's just something to think about out there. The low interest loans that you got at the great time that you did aren't necessarily available anymore, unfortunately, because of interest rates. But even at the GFA level, some of the forgiving loans and things like that they've got,
I'm
are starting.
excited about this one here.
Yeah, they're starting to try
No
it.
debt.
Right. Yes. So exactly. Right now, no governmental debt outstanding, and so you can see that obviously that you've got Pooler and Statesboro that have a little bit of debt out there. What I want to talk about next is just in terms of the way that we think about general government debt versus self-supporting debt, tax exempt debt, tax supported debt. In terms of the utility system, it's self-supporting. You saw that a while ago. You without any basically revenues coming from the general fund, it supports itself, and that's important because our view is to look at that as a separate business and run it like a separate business. Because if all of a sudden it's taking on a lot of debt, we don't want to put pressure on the general fund. And so we try to keep those separate, and you guys have done a great job with that. So that's one thing, a point that we wanted to make is, as we look at some of these policies we're about to talk about from the debt side, we're gonna, again, as I mentioned, exclude utilities because it is self-supporting. There are places out there that unfortunately the utility system doesn't support itself, and we have to count that debt as a part of any general government debt, and that can put pressure on that side of the house, if you will. So one of the policies we're going to talk about tonight is debt versus full value. It's outstanding debt divided by that full value. Again, it's kind of like a credit card measure. It's measuring against the value of the real estate and personal property in the locality. And so it's kind of a measure that says, hey, how much can I go out and borrow? We're going to show you a number a little bit later. Well, actually, right here on the next slide. We're going to show you that based on 2% growth in terms of full values. Essentially, right now, you can get about 40 million, I'm gonna round up, taking liberties. Based on our estimate, at using a 3% guideline, which is what we're suggesting as an initial policy, that's based on, you'll see down there in the bottom, that Moody's has separate levels of, as they're looking at. This doesn't mean you would be rated this. It's basically that particular guideline. To be very strong, it's 0.75 or lower. To be in a AA kind of category, 0.75 to 175. A moderate A in 175 to 4%. We kind of split that moderate A level because frankly at 175 it doesn't give you a lot, and I know there's going to be some needs that you guys are going to need to look at. So we chose 3% as a kind of middle of the road there in the moderate A. We've got some folks who've got that 3% level that actually can get a AA. Not saying we couldn't get a AA. I would think probably right now out of the gate an A would be a very good rating to shoot for. A1 or A+, something like that. And if we stay within these guidelines, we should be in good shape based on what I've seen in your finances thus far in fund balance levels. To give you a sense of kind of where you might look versus others, you can see that most are well below that at this point. But again, as I mentioned, a lot of those don't even have ratings anyway. Statesboro does have a rating, but I'm not sure about the others. Very quickly, we just wanted to talk about how, if you guys came and said, hey, we need to go borrow some money, how do we do that? Part of what our job is to help you get the lowest interest rate and figure out what's the best way to go. Let's say if it's water and sewer, GFA might be an option, but if they're not an option, what are the other options? And so there are a lot of different things that go into that decision. Depending upon where we think your rating might come out, what kind of security is the background, how big is it going to be, what's the length of the loan going to be, things like that. And so in order to do that, one of the things we look at in terms of timeline on the next slide is how long does it take us to do that? And generally it's about I'll say a 90-day period. We're probably talking 120 at the beginning as we're really kicking this off. First month or so, just trying to get our feet on the ground, and then we start putting a plan together. But essentially about a 3 to 4 month process to get it done. And part of that is trying to decide on the next slide whether we're going to go, if the state is not available, do we do a direct bank loan? Do we go to the public market? We don't need a rating to do a direct bank loan. We put a request for proposal together. We send it out to the banks. Why would we do the banks? Well, only if we can get a better rate. And right now, we're not seeing great rates from the banks, frankly, because of where interest rates are on the short end of the yield curve. They've been reluctant to be aggressive with their rates. They don't want to be locked in for a long period of time. It's been hard to get a 20-year fixed rate from them. They may say, we'll give you a 10-year rate. You can amortize it over 20 years, but that means you got to reset it in 10 years. You have to rebid it out and things like that. And so that happens. And we're okay with that if the rate's good enough at the 10-year level. But what we're seeing is really good rates out in the public market, and we'll show you some rates in a little bit on that. The other thing we look at is what types of bonds. Is it going to be a general obligation bond? Is it going to be an intergovernmental contract going through a separate authority? Is it going to be a pure revenue bond like it might be for a utility bond? Is it part of a SPLOST program? We did the T-SPLOST bonds, we'll see in a moment for Effingham, something like that. Or is it some type of lease or installment sale? So I won't get into details tonight, but just make you aware that there are different ways to get there. And if that time arises where you say go and figure out how we do this, we're going to come and tell you what we think and give you our recommendation. Where are interest rates now? So our market, basically, we always look at the AAA interest rates. For a AA or single A, it's going to trade slightly higher. It's really, at this point in time, it's really not a big difference, maybe 5 to 10 to 20 basis points higher than a AAA. They're all very close together. Rates had came down, obviously, after COVID, very, very low, but they popped back up into the 3 to 4% range. The next slide gives you the yield curve, year 1 to year 30. You can see that front end yield curve is inverted right now. We have rates that are higher than, say, years 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it goes back up around year 12 and then goes into what we call a normal slope, or is an upward sloping yield curve. If you take that and average it together, it's about for like Effingham, we did our 6-year T-Splosh that we did back in April. The average rate there was about a 2.90, just below 3% for 6 years. Then on the next slide, to give you a sense of this is a client of mine up in Virginia that we did very recently. For 20-year debt, it was only 3.5%. It shows you kind of how flat the yield curve is when you're looking out at 20 years versus at 6 years. It was only about 60 basis points more to do a 20-year debt. And so you can kind of see that we're still under 4% for 20-year money, which is really good in our bond market. So the whole purpose really tonight was to talk about financial policies. And there's really 4 areas: debt management, fund balance, investment, and reporting. And so we're going to hit on all of those. The first one being fund balance. And we talked a little bit about this. Currently, you don't have a policy for fund balance. And so our recommendation, as I mentioned earlier, is to set the unassigned fund balance at a minimum of the greater of $5 million or 75% of the annual operating expenditures for the fiscal year. And then have we have the wording in there that basically if it drops below that the city manager will come back and develop a plan to replenish that within 3 years. And why do you do that? Well, because sometimes it's raining. It's a rainy day fund, as we all call it. And so there may be a time that you might need to actually dip into it. And if it goes below the policy, we just need to have a plan to put it back in place. And these are things that the rating agencies are okay with. They know that there are times that you may need to actually go below your policy, but they do want to see that you've got a plan to get it back in place. The next one is debt management policies. As I mentioned, that's you don't have one currently. And again, this would be tax-supported net direct debt as percentage of full value should not exceed 3%. And again, that would exclude utilities as long as it's self-supporting, water and sewer, things like that, self-supporting debt. But it would include things like SPLOST and other debt that you might take on for the general fund. Investment policies. Basically, your policy right now, and I made one change that wasn't in your book. I realized that there was some language in there that said that your policy was only do CDs, and I know you probably don't just do CDs anyway, so it really is cleaning up that policy. It does go on to say that you can do state law, and so we're going to change the wording slightly to make sure that it's revised to say that the language limits investments to certificate of deposits. That's what it says right now, but we want to add in any other investments available under Georgia law, and that's going to include things like U.S. Treasury bonds, any agencies that are 100% guaranteed by the U.S. government. It also includes things like certain commercial paper, and we'll refine that to make sure it's covered just by Georgia law. Because you want to be able to put your money in like Georgia Fund 1, which is not CDs, but that's what a lot of local governments around the state will put the money in right now. It's around 5.3%. And so that's very liquid. It's money you can pull out at any time you need it. And so at the moment, that's where a lot of folks are keeping their money, because with the yield curve so front loaded, it's very high yielding right now. So we want to make sure, and you're probably already investing in something like that, but we want to make sure that we get the policies lined up. So that's the one change, and we'll get to Jonathan and Maura. We'll edit that one little language. Reporting policies. One of the things that the agencies like to see is that you all are getting budget to actual reports at least quarterly, so you can kind of monitor what's going on, in terms of your budget on just a month-to-month basis, but at least quarterly. And so that's something that we've written in there, that it's a minimum quarterly. You can always do it more, so that you're getting those reports. And then the other thing that we added in that you'll see in the written policies, you had some of these, but we went through and really cleaned some of them up in terms of internal controls, in terms of check writing, who actually is authorized to write checks, things like that. So we went through a lot of those control activities, if you will, and worked on some of that language so that it made more sense with today's world and the way that you're probably operating anyway. And so we brought those into compliance. So really, a couple things just wrapping up. You've got great fund balance levels. That's going to basically allow you to make some investments in the community going forward, whether it be in the water and sewer side or other projects. Keeping the fund balance up basically allows you to take on more debt if you need to, but as I mentioned, if that's something you wanna do. And then, adoption of these policies are a really good financial practice, and, will help you if in the future down the road we need to go out and procure a bond rating, because that's something they're gonna wanna see. So, with that, happy to answer questions.
There was a lot to digest.
Which is why we don't want you to.
Which is why there's nothing on the agenda to adopt.
That's right, we don't,
tonight.
yeah, we
Well,
won't.
but some of this stuff too
Yes.
is the, you know, I see where we don't have we don't have any existing policies in
So
place.
That's
So-
correct.
I'm surprised.
So we need to financially, you know, we need to put things in place to protect that, different areas throughout the city, right? And that's a recommendation.
That's our recommendation, exactly. And these are based on, you know, my 30-plus years' experience doing this for local governments. Some of these are based on, as you saw, rating agency methodologies and things like that. It's based on the government, GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officer Association, the national organization that a lot of finance directors are parties to. So, you know, it's a lot of that information and years of experience that basically.
We'd like to have a AAA rating.
So,
Well, and then
Yes, we-
reporting too, like, when you say reporting, that's us reporting our financials correctly
It's-
during a certain.
It's both
period.
ways. It's not only you reporting it out, but it's also being reported to you from staff.
Yeah.
You know,
So
it's a lot of.
we've definitely never had that. It's never
Right.
been consistent,
Right,
to where we've gotten a P&L.
yep. And those are the type of things we can help show them examples that other local governments do.
Yeah.
That doesn't add to a lot of the work they're already doing. It's really a report that
It's a
your
printout.
software system probably already has. It's
Right.
just really getting it to you in a timely basis.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the one I like, on page 98, where it says controlled environment,
Mm-hmm.
where we're controlling the environment of what's going on with our finances. That's not been in place. You know, this is fixing some things here, and, but it's, I guess what we need to know from us is how do we move forward, get some of it, get this put in place, and what's
Yeah.
next steps, is my question.
So from our side, from a staff level, if you guys are okay with the policy, Courtney and I'll get together within the next couple of days and have those policies on the agenda to adopt at your next meeting and go ahead and put them in place. Very similar to what we're doing with the UDO. We want you to look at them before making a decision on them at that moment.
So you go in, and I just wanna understand this, cause I don't wanna call Jonathan 10 times tomorrow.
No, that's what I'm here for.
You know, I just wanna understand, like, so you'll go in and assist in getting some of these controls put in place, or help our staff get those things in place? Or will you
Controls
just-
not as much. That's really more staff and probably working with the auditors.
Mhm.
The auditors are really gonna do more on the control side. We're gonna be more on the financial debt investment side.
Okay.
So it's kinda like, it's almost like, we're putting some of this in place for the auditors to have to deal with too.
Okay.
But we've seen some of the information, like he's shared with us, the auditor's letters and some of the things that they were saying that you need to do. So we tried to put those in this document, put it in place so that staff would follow, have something to follow.
I'm looking for the day where we do our audits on time and they're happening quickly and they get all the reports they need efficiently. And there's not a lot of stress inside City Hall to make that happen, which I think Whitney is working on.
I think all these things add up to that, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I worked with Whitney, I worked with Whitney and Bullock, so I know. she's good.
Correct.
You know?
She is wonderful.
Yep.
Whitney is wonderful.
Yep, no, absolutely.
Anybody got anything else?
And I will say it's very beneficial, Davenport, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, Courtney, they also work with every other jurisdiction in Effingham County now.
Right.
So when we're putting things in place, the other cities in Effingham County are kind of doing the same thing, so we're all gonna be kind of working off the same sheet of music going forward, which will help greatly.
Yeah, Ricardo's,
Across jurisdictional boundaries, we all got, the money, we can work really good there.
trying to, exactly. We
Roads and big projects like that.
right, we're working with Effingham. Ricardo's spoken to, been in front of the council over in Guyton, I've been in front of Springfield, so everybody's got a little bit different things going on.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you know, the baseline is really set by everyone, and so that's what we're trying to put in place.
All right, I gather from this, should we need to acquire debt you're an advisement arm for that.
That's what we do, yes,
So
sir.
I will say that if we need to acquire debt, I would pick the phone up and call these guys, and say, here's what we wanna do, help us make it happen.
Yeah,
And
that's what, so
they,
we,
that's what they do, yeah.
that's really our bread and butter. In fact, we work with Chatham, we work with Bryan, we work with Bullock, we work with Statesboro, so we're in the area.
Perfect.
You know the people.
We do, we're all over the state. Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, y'all.
It was fun reading today.
Good, and again, if there's something we missed, let Jonathan know, we'll get it in.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, moving on to number 2, vote on the application filed by Corey Rogers with ENC Engineering Services for requesting the final site plan of the 22-unit townhome complex. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, sir, I'm gonna ask Ms. Lewis to get up here, and the applicant to get up and make their application.
Say we have the owner and the engineer here that can answer any questions you may have.
You guys have any questions on this? It's just,
And this is the final site plan, so they've already gotten their preliminary
Right.
site plans, this is just to get the final one to go ahead and start the project.
and this is the one that is directly behind the strip mall there?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Because we- yeah.
where Subway
Yes, sir.
is, and then that,
Yes.
person further back,
Yep.
it's
That's it.
divided by Town Park
Yes.
East, I think, road.
That's right.
All right, I'm assuming that's a swell, it's not a pond.
There's
That's
a,
retention
Is that a
pond.
retention pond?
Yes,
The
ma'am.
lines are growing on.
Oh, so I can't see what you're looking
Like,
at.
and I've got
It's
it,
that
I've
right
got it
there.
up on the screen.
Yes, ma'am. All those lines together are the ponds in the back, detention pond.
That's just the depth indicators of the pond.
See, I'm more mechanical, I see lines, I think they're growing.
No, these look similar to the ones that are there now.
Bob, you can answer that question. The question was, will these units look similar to the units that are there now?
The units we're gonna build here are gonna be 2 stories. I think possibly 3, we're gonna do some market evaluation. I think the ones behind us are 1 level, a little bit older style townhomes.
Yes, they are.
So, yeah, we're gonna go a little bit higher vertically than those units.
On one of the, drawings, you had a lighting layout not valid with the agreement from George Powell. Can you explain that?
That's typical language for a photometric plan, so we don't have, EMC doesn't have the ability to produce photometric plans in-house.
Right, so you weigh in George Powell.
That's right,
Okay.
and that's basically them saying, this isn't valid until you sign the agreement that says you're gonna install, basically commit to
So
install.
basically, most of the lighting will be along the street and where the cars are parked, I assume.
That would be the only lighting. There's only
Yeah.
a few
Maybe
lights in
somewhere
there.
around the retention pond.
I'm not sure which drawing we're on.
Right there, that one right there. Yeah, so there's,
It's just on the street.
there are 5 right now proposed, and 1 right there at the corner of the detention pond.
Yeah, I was just curious about that statement, that's all.
And now refresh my memory, these are townhomes that will be sold.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, so they'll be covered under an HOA of
Yes,
some
ma'am.
sort? And the HOA will take responsibility for that pond and the maintaining of it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Grass cutting and all that.
The maintenance. We've got a walking
Now
trail.
we were talking about parking spaces. The biggest problem I have with townhome places, like there's one on, Blue Jay. They got cars everywhere. If there's not enough parking, how many cars can a person get in their driveway, and do you have extra parking?
We have garages on our units also, and then I'm gonna let him expand on the driveway depth to accommodate additional parking.
Jonathan, if you're controlling this, can you scroll back up to the site plan? There you go, right there.
Yeah, they talked about.
So we've got paved driveways up to the garage, so you've got 1 parking space in the garage, that's actually a 45-foot front setback, so you've got 45 feet worth of parking there. So you could easily fit 2 more vehicles on that concrete area, and then the unit itself, or the property itself, is actually about twice that width. So if you wanted to, and you had guests, you could have 2 more parking spots at a minimum in the grass.
Golly, that's a lot more than I've seen anywhere else.
That's a
You
good
don't see
distance,
that.
that's a good depth, yeah.
Yeah,
That depth, right.
So that'd be about 5 spots easily.
yeah, that's pretty strong. Most people have 2. and
Yeah.
And most of
that's
these
it.
are gonna be what, 2 or 3 bedroom type townhomes,
Yes,
or
sir.
a mix?
Yes, sir. 3 tops.
Could remember, 3 at the most.
Yes.
Anything else, guys? If not, there's a motion in order.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion to approve by Mr. Blackwell, second by Mr. Scott. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Our third is to vote, agenda item number 3 is to vote on the, first reading of the ordinance by the mayor and council for the city of Rankin repealing the code. And I'm not gonna go through all of these, but,
Mr. Mayor, I think you can just say approve, recommend approval of the item as written.
As written.
That would be,
Okay.
that's fine.
Does anybody have any questions on this?
Just to clarify, this is the section that had mostly the definitions for everything in this whole section.
That's correct.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Right, council didn't have any, suggested changes at the public
No.
hearing.
Make a motion to approve.
That's,
Got a motion by Mr. Blackwell, second by Ms. Underwood. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to agenda item number 4, approval to reappoint Rebecca Boston to serve as a non-public representative of Effingham County and the cities of Guyton, Rankin, and Springfield for the Coastal Regional Commission Council.
Mr. Lynn, you got anything to comment?
No, sir,
No comment?
knows this, she's been serving and she wishes to continue
Mona
to serve.
made a motion, I second.
She is reporting back to you, or is available usually.
She's always available if we need anything, yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
I make a motion.
Right.
Got a motion by Ms. Underwood, and I got a second by Ms. Riley. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Approve agreement with Windstream to provide connection internet services to city facilities in the amount of $9,540 per month.
Yes, sir, this is, one of those items we've been talking about consistently, about getting all of our city buildings updated with their connectivity to internet, to fiber.
Are you sure it's Windstream?
That's who's in.
Windstream has fiber.
And they're also, as part of this quote, if it's not there, they're building out the fiber connection to every building.
They do have some fiber in the city, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so they're looking, if you're looking there, it's about gig speeds. Some of the places now could be, less than 100.
Windstream by Clearway?
I don't know that this arm is associated with Clearway.
No,
Clearway.
Windstream has it, they even
Didn't
have
work very
underground
well.
cable in.
I thought that
I'm trying to think of the name,
Okay. Did we
it's
contact them?
Windstream.
Yes,
but
we
it's-
contacted every provider. Comcast was also.
Connecticut.
It's Connecticut.
Connecticut is Windstream and Clearway is Hardgray.
So what this also does, it puts in what's called SD-WAN. The other quotes, the other providers were exorbitant in their quoting of that. What that does, and this is just my having to talk through everybody as to what does that mean. There's a built-in, what's called a redundancy. So say Windstream goes down, they have agreements with whether it's Verizon, whether it's Comcast, that if it goes down, one of those other services will click in until they're back up and running, so that we don't have any downtime at all of anything that we are doing. Right now, I'm just gonna be honest, we don't even have fiber through Comcast. Throughout the city, we're averaging about $7,300 a month now.
Yes.
For substandard service.
Okay,
So
so that's what we're paying, this is a
This
small.
and this gets us all connected. They did tell me, because they are having to do the build out to certain facilities, with Macomber Park being priority number 1. It's about a 90-day lead time, but they'll have it up, and if we can go ahead and get them on board, they'll have it up and running before the fall sports
So
season.
that'll get everything out. to
Out
them.
there, they'll help us put in routers to extend everything to, even if, having the facilities there connected, we know that having connectivity within the concession stands was gonna be important. This includes that as well.
Well, I want,
And for the cameras for security. and
Right.
safety.
That's correct, yes.
I want the cameras hooked up at jobs as well.
All right, so this is security cameras throughout the city or just at the buildings?
This will be, this has nothing to do with the security cameras overall.
No.
This is only internet, that's it. I know where you're going, that is a different conversation.
Yes, we wanna make sure that is working.
They will absolutely, anything will be able to connect into this system and not have to run off Wi-Fi.
Right, anything.
Anything.
Okay.
All right, I'm happy with that.
Anything's big.
Motion's in order? So moved.
I have a question.
Second.
Wait,
Go ahead.
Speak now.
So, What does the contract look like? Can we get out of it?
They're not doing a contract, is
there's,
There's gonna be a contract.
Is it like, does it be 2 years?
it's a 4-year agreement.
4 years,
Um,
no building out cost.
yeah,
Whatever else.
So Vic,
I will make.
I don't wanna delay anything, but at the same time,
I will make
I
sure-
have dealt with Windstream in the past, I have not had good experiences, and I had a hard time getting out of the contract. I would be interested in, how do we get out of it if they're not providing the level of service that we require?
I will
What
make
does
sure
that
that, I will make sure
contract
that legal has something put in there before we sign it. That allows us whatever amount that they deem necessary to be able to terminate.
And I will ditto that, Brandy.
I'll give you that.
Been there.
Yep. Okay.
All right, anything else? Motion's in order?
I had a second.
Who had it?
Dan second.
Now I got a motion by Mr. Scott, got a second by Mr. Blackwell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, guys, on the next one here is to authorize the city attorney to draft a deed for, .11 acre remnant parcel located in the 500 block of West 7th Street to Sampson Manor, adjacent to the property owner. I'll just speak on this a little bit. They have the property across from Giles. Mr. Greg Maynard is building his house there, and they have no access for their road to get onto 7th Street. So we're just gonna give them the piece so that they can drive the right of way.
And if you all have been on
Yeah,
council,
we-
we did this a while back, we surplused
We
it, but
discussed
Mr. Maynard the conversations kinda fell off, so all the work has been done,
Right.
for you all to be able to move forward with this and have legal get in and draft that to
Motion to
move forward.
approve.
Second.
All right, I got a motion by Ms. Riley, I got a second by Ms. Underwood. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Mr. City Manager, we'll move in administrative report.
Yes, sir, I'll try to be as brief as possible tonight, just a couple of things, remind everyone, tomorrow, June 25th at 5:30, we will be doing our first community engagement walk, with we start with the Picket Fences neighborhood. We're gonna meet at the Rally Point location at Sterling and Pierpont. Hopefully kick it off at 5:30, encourage everyone that wants to come out to attend. Dress comfortably, it's gonna be hot, I don't think anybody should be in a suit and tie, it's my personal opinion, it is gonna be hot. And what we intend to do here, and we'll take this out through other neighborhoods as we go, is do very similar to what Mr. Exley had done in Savannah, where we walk around, we have the chief of police, the fire chief, public works, planning, zoning, that we're all out there walking and talking to the neighbors, they get to put faces with names, and we get to hear their problems, where are their concerns, what are their issues, and then each time we go out to one of these neighborhoods, we come back and say, hey, here's how we tackle these things. We give them that chance, and we just start getting out and about in the community. We are gonna mirror it after Savannah. We will record it, not so much to have people's problems heard, but for us to be able to have that in posterity, to be able to address the concerns and make sure that we're hearing everything right. So we'll start that tomorrow at 5:30 for anyone that can attend.
What's the meeting, the rally?
The Rally Point at Pierpont and Sterling, yes ma'am.
So I don't know whether you got the video that I sent, but, another big thing is a lot of neighborhoods have no idea, how many calls that are called in. Those are things that our police and fire should bring to the table. Code enforcement should be talking about derelict vehicles and things that they're seeing in there. We need to start looking at, stop signs and, do they have stop signs in the correct place? Do we have enough? Any other type of speed barriers that we may need. So it's just things like that we'll walk through, drainage areas in the neighborhood, and then we'll take all that information down. And I think for maybe the future, as the weather gets a certain way, we'll wanna have a band that we can get on a Teams call and kind of follow each other and have, also, it's gonna be really structured because we need one person from that community speaking, who will be the voice.
And their HOA president will be that person
And
tomorrow.
so, another thing, so there's areas of town that are not, in neighborhoods. So I think, if council will look at areas and start combining, certain areas that we
Creating
don't have.
quadrants.
Yeah, and put them in quadrants in the city so that we can address, areas as well.
And I think, you know, as we go through, it's gonna be, you know, mission critical to have those areas tell us what they're looking for, you know. Going through picket fences, their concerns in their neighborhood don't necessarily deal with recreation, but if we go through the neighborhoods off Lexington, we definitely will want recreation with it. So it's, all that's gonna be, you know, kind of a moving, living process depending on where we go. So another thing, I put this in an email to everyone, I did send out, kind of our point in time counts for where we are for the budget year, through the end of May. But in that email, I mentioned that what we're looking to do now, and hopefully get that up and running, in short order, is utilize what's called a transparency portal on our website. When we create an area where a citizen can just go click a button, it'll incorporate into our app where the budget, the audits, the task list, all the monthly reports or quarterly reports we're putting out there is one location. Or you go get it, it's updated. You know, it's very simple. It's not anything that's very detailed, but it's just a place where we can allow citizens to get that information quicker and easier. And I know that's where we're all trying to get, and that's what kind of was talked to earlier, is just making sure all those things are now being put in place. So that's, you know, and I'm just gonna be honest, and you guys know this as well as I do, not everything is always gonna look glorious, but we will put everything out there and be ready to answer any questions that we have, so. Just happy to say that, you know, I had some conversations went about today, thanks to Chief Reed, thanks to Jody Jones, myself, Mona, Kevin, Brandy, everybody that kind of put their information in there. We were able to get about 100 box fans. They are available right now. There's some at the fire department, there's some at City Hall. If anyone's, specifically seniors, need to cool off and we're able to give them a fan, just come, prove you're a resident of Rincon, show us your ID. Those fans are free, we're not asking anything for them, we don't have to sign for them. Just come to one of us and say you need them. We're ready to help everybody. You know, that the next step is to work on having a cooling center that we can have open, you know, in those hot afternoon hours, and be able to do that. So we're working through that. But what we were able to do today was to get those 100 fans, and you know, thanks to the people at Lowe's that helped us get everything loaded up and move forward.
And I think Randy sent something out, it was 110 index today. I mean, that's hot.
And we shared a couple tips on our Facebook page and through the app notification as to what to do when that happens, you know, how to address, what to do, what kind of activities to do, just to make sure everybody is being safe. That's the main concern for everyone.
So I think it's great that we scrambled today, but it was a scramble. So I'd like to see our city really working with, whether it's Effingham Emergency Management or Chief, some type of policy in place for days like today where the heat index is so high. What is the policy? It shouldn't be a scramble because Mona recognized that the heat index was so high today and sent text messages. We should have a policy in place that says, hey, when we start crossing this threshold, these notices go out to our citizens and it just be in place. We don't have that. We're behind.
Well, the county gets those, that's the thing, the county gets those notifications. So Brandy's right, I think it's a conversation that we need to have, because when the county gets that notification, because it comes out from, you know, SEMA and everybody, that's how they come out.
But what do they do with it? What's the process? Do they get it to, either one of you guys?
No.
So
No.
how do?
Well, the reality is we're not talking just about heat index. We need an emergency plan in place for extreme weather.
Yeah.
Period, whether it's extreme cold, because we have senior citizens that, and I'm gonna tell you, our senior citizens that are at risk are isolated, they're alone, they're probably not on the internet. As a community, we have a responsibility to identify them and make sure we can get them to somewhere, if it's dropping down below freezing, if it's extreme weather, tornadoes, if it's extreme heat. If we need to get a plan in place, and Lou's new, like the rest of us, we're all fixing things now, and so, ball's in their court, I believe.
Merle, on the notification that goes out, storms and stuff like that goes out, it comes into the county, they send it out. I think the storms is the only time y'all group get the information. What about the heat indexes? stuff, they should have that.
Yeah,
We get.
Chatham Area Management sends that out to all their
Yeah, if you look
departments,
at all of the communities
Yeah,
surrounding
and
us,
information comes in through
Effingham
that
is
system.
behind.
Yeah.
I get an email from either Clint Hodges or, Shannon, Shannon, that's right.
Well, and like
That's
Randy
the
said,
first storm is what
it may not be the city, you know, we may be behind as a county. What she's saying is whoever we have to get that from, we need to contact that resource and make sure that
And
we're.
just
So
be,
when I
it's
say
just be basically
Effingham.
connecting into what Effingham has, because it's
But
coming in.
Effingham isn't doing the job correctly. with
Well,
that.
that's what I'm saying.
That's my point. Effingham is behind. If Effingham were notifying our chiefs properly, this would have already triggered a conversation to what is our policy for it. But they're not even sending any heat advisories.
Is there any?
Do we get information on a hurricane? Absolutely.
Yes.
But that is not the only event that happens.
I looked and did not see even weather alerts until I started seeing Facebook posts. Lou, did anybody alert you of extreme weather this week? Cause I didn't see anything.
No.
No, I'm on the SEMA alert list where we get the notifications, through the county, and Chatham County also, and they have, either county has not issued a heat advisory.
And that's
I
what
thought what I seen today from you.
Only the
was
weather
from
stations
China.
on TV have.
This was
Yeah,
just-
and that's what I'm
Chatham
saying,
Emergency
reaching out to
Management,
the county.
yes.
Yeah, but that was
See, they
SEMA
have
she
the
got
best- the
today.
same passage that you
I
sent
didn't get
to
one.
us, if
Didn't
not,
get one.
then we can
Yeah,
look at
she
somebody
had
else
one.
that knows.
And I know in-
Charleston, I think it is.
Yeah, internally it gets out, so.
Well, you know, we've identified it. So Jonathan,
There's a list
Can I
that,
say
there's a
this?
list that can go on.
Can I say this?
Go ahead.
Add it to the list.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else?
Yeah, just one other thing, I'd just like to echo what you said, you know, we were out there Saturday. I know Shannon probably doesn't need the kudos, but we had so many people involved. I know Mr. Levi, Miss Michelle, myself, Jody, a couple of us, you know, walked most of the time, and when I tell you it was hot, that's an understatement.
It was hot.
But we appreciate everybody that came out, all the staff, all the people, you know, into the night, it was just an overall great day. You know, we hope to continue doing that, and we appreciate y'all's support in getting that done. And,
Okay, talk on that note, I have something. Public Works needs some gators, because they clean up after the festivals, and they were moving stuff around with golf carts. So they need their own gators to transport trash cans and other big stuff. So I'm proposing that needs to be budgeted, or we need to purchase some for them, because they need the right equipment to
We did it
to do their job.
Yeah.
Say that again, Shannon.
We did it this morning.
You did it for them? Okay, well,
We
they
went
still
out,
need.
well, I mean, it was our event, so I felt like after the fair that we need to go out afterwards and clean up after ourselves.
Saturday night before we left.
Well, and then I sent them out this morning, so, and I don't have a problem scheduling them to stay later if that's what we need to do.
Yeah. But you know, it's not, I hear what Michelle's saying, it's not just that.
Right.
If we're gonna be holding events and doing things like that, we may not be able to get our hands on the golf carts, cause there may be a big tournament going on or
Or
something.
she may be using hers.
Right, so it's you know, I think we need to do that, those are heavy duty, they've got a trunk, we can be cleaning up during those events, so I think that's a good.
Well, and the
idea.
gators also can be there as access for these parades and stuff too, hauling stuff and doing stuff, so I think it'll be used, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So what's the, standard operating procedure for an event that we hold? Is the rec department responsible for that cleanup, or is Public Works? Cause it sounds like there might be confusion there.
So I'll speak to that a little bit, and I think that this is, again, not a knock on anyone in the past, it's just, there's not been a lot of partnership in the after action from here, and I think now that Tim and Shannon now have that going on, this being the first big event, I don't think we're gonna have that
So
issue.
you're saying that it should be a combined.
That it just needs to be a combined, everybody pitches in,
Right.
stick around, be
So
there.
I'll say these words again. What is the standard operating procedure and where is it written down? There wouldn't be confusion and they would know if we had that.
Well, we went through and picked up trash all night long, emptied them out, took them and put them in the dumpster. Now, she sent the crew
No,
over.
Tim, we appreciate what you do. You, Shannon, both. Like, I'm not knocking any of that. You guys did a phenomenal job on this event. What I'm saying is, we are still at a point, 6 months after us being sworn in, where we don't have standard operating procedures for things that happen within our city, and I have a problem with that.
And they are due by every department head in August.
Is that what
They
we're
have been
working on
told-
with the
Ma'am.
group that's in here working now? Do we have that group in here working on, we had a group coming in that was going to do comparisons throughout the city with employment,
Oh,
job
that,
descriptions,
that's the pay and,
That's
that's
just
the
a
pay and
compensation
compensation study. We should have those that report this week, but department heads were all tasked with doing their own SOPs, and they're due in the month
Turn
of
them
August.
into you for you
Turn
to
them into me,
approve.
they're available to you guys if you wanna see them.
Yeah.
But they have about another 45 days to get those turned in.
And Jonathan, when you look at them, you may tweak those things to make sure that it hits everything that we're screaming about.
And there's always gonna be something that we need to add.
Always gonna be one.
But,
Yeah.
and there's gonna be some that legal has to look at too.
But SOPs are ever-changing documents, and it is something that we need to start SOPs for everything. Brandy's right.
Yeah.
And then as you change and as things turn, then you add to that SOP. You can always add to them or take from them.
That's correct.
well, this city government is organic, it's gonna constantly be moving and growing and changing, but, is there a reason it's gonna take 45 days for a department director to write down what they all do?
I
My
gave them all.
question is, it's already taken 6 months, and now we're pushing into 8 months.
Well, for example, the police department SOP is about that thick.
Well, my thing is, Jonathan, what I was gonna say is,
And
could
so
you
is the
send out
fire
an email
department.
letting them know that that's the deadline? And
They've heard it in several department head meetings.
and if they
yes,
don't
ma'am.
get it in by then, they get written up.
That's probably more than a write-up, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so,
And it's August because they had 6 months to get it done.
yes.
Cause some departments have never had one, and they were having to start from scratch.
That's what I'm
Like
saying.
Merle said, the PD and fire department,
Yeah,
there's not one piece of paper they have to update, there's
Yeah.
hundreds of things that they do every day.
And they need to know, this isn't us being critical of them, this is just us getting the city where it needs to be.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
And they're having to pick up and carry the load for this, and we appreciate it, we really do.
And as we move throughout this year and we start doing new events and stuff like that, we recognize that things that have never happened before are starting to happen. So now that we know that we had this event and there is some confusion on who's responsible for what, I would hope that either Shannon or Tim is picking up the SOP for this type of thing.
That's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, Chief, Police, PD?
Submitted a written report. I think the largest thing I have to report to you guys outside of the written report is most of you spoke too soon the other night about everything going well. We broke down, emptied the, while emptying the parking lot, all the traffic. We had our officers assigned to all the intersections along 21 to keep it flowing, and Corporal Heinko was assigned to 21 at Fort Howard, had his blue lights going, had his safety vest on, had his flashlight, directing traffic, he's doing everything like he's supposed to do. And a vehicle hit him, this person, hard enough that he rolled all the way up onto the windshield of the car. You see the handprint smears on the glass, hit him in his leg. Thank the Lord he went on top of the car, not under the car. That happened late, but he's doing good, so. Anyway, that's the biggest thing I had to report.
Well, the feedback that I heard from everyone was that your guys did an amazing job at
Getting
keeping
people
traffic,
out.
getting
Yeah.
people out, like it ran really, really smoothly.
Can you see who did it?
Yeah.
I mean,
I would advise we.
Not talking about that.
Chief,
I'm
glad you said that, we'll bring that up too.
that is scary.
It was, I'm glad you brought that up, I meant to say that too. We had a, shooting, no injuries that we know of, Friday night. Of course, Saturday morning, we get here and we start cracking on the parade and had our briefing at 8 o'clock, so we started following up on it after the parade, before the fireworks.
There were 2 cars at Giles Park that left before we got on scene. We found some shell casings in the road, shell casings in the park, 2 different calibers.
What was the caliber?
9mm 45. A residence was struck, but again, nobody injured. We are still looking through that. So they're still active.
Since you brought that up, I just wanna talk about the flock cameras and where are we?
Before you get to that, back to this incident, that park, we've been requesting more lights out there. We're requesting more patrolling out there. Because undoubtedly, we've got people coming from South Carolina, we've got young men coming from South Carolina, Savannah, Fort Wentworth, hangs in that park. And we found out even a couple of years back, it's always somebody from out of town that's even shooting out there. One of these bullets went to the house. Right.
I think this is gonna lead us one of the smallest points, but there's a, security meeting coming up. A lot of this knows. Sir, I'm sorry.
Trying to keep me informed of what's going on.
Anything on the cameras?
I'm ready to move forward. I gotta get the guy back in and get an updated quote, but, aside from that, we have a ballpark on what it's gonna cost. I'm ready to move forward.
Yeah, because that's
Should we, are they in the parking area, or was it, you know, cause I know sometimes they'll drive up on the basketball court.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Yeah, we need to fence that in better.
That's one of my recommendations. But
Alright,
Oh, you're talking about block,
So,
from what I understand, at some point, both vehicles were in the parking lot area. Where it actually took place, it seems to be between the road and the parking lot, because that's where the shell casings were found.
so Kevin's point, these flock cameras, if we had these flock cameras in place, you would stand a greater chance of identifying these vehicles.
He would have already identified.
You'd have
Probably
known
so.
it,
Yep.
and you would have them. We need to get
Yeah.
get
So-
that to us on flock cameras, we can all, I think,
Yeah.
look at that.
Because now, he's gotta go outside the city to be able to pick up those vehicles possibly going out of the city around that time.
Yeah, I've seen them on the
Yeah.
outskirts of the city limits, 21, Lee J.
The problem is right now, we don't have a concrete description.
Right.
We've got I just got another conflicting description tonight, so.
Okay, so, and then I guess we need to look at lights at, Giles, we need to look at securing that park at night, at dark, however we need to start
And
doing this.
enforcing the club curfew.
Well, and you know, that's both parks though, you know, there's people that go around the back of McCumber.
Back on the back end.
And they're walking at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, there's no reason to be parked back there
Exactly.
at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, so.
Okay,
Monica, I want y'all to stop.
so, I talked to the police chief today, because believe it or not, I'm trying to curb how much I talk at these things. But, and I noticed on your report, there was 20, where was that at, 20 juvenile complaints in the city. There are several car entries, which were probably juveniles. We had some graffiti at our new Chipotle's building, but I noticed they probably didn't send in a police report, cause they took that wall down anyway. So, but when I saw the Chipotle, that had me all upset anyway. But Michelle and I went to, the convention center yesterday to look at vendors, and we talked to a nice gentleman with parks. This man's from Atlanta, but he's very aware of vandalism at our playgrounds and our parks in Effingham County. That's embarrassing. But what makes me mad is parents not parenting. And that's what this is. We've got to do something about juvenile delinquency, vandalism, and curfews. And we need a plan in place, so I talked to the chief today and asked him if he would get with Jonathan or whoever he needs to and bring back a plan on how we can attack this as a city, because we want these people to answer for it.
As a county.
As a county, because everybody's having problems, and just send a clear message to parents that we're gonna hold you responsible when your children damage our property. We expect you to parent your children, and, your children need to be off the streets, especially if they're minors. But he's gotta work out a plan for that, so I asked him if he would at the next meeting bring us a plan.
just something that I might mention, kinda in line with the presentation that we saw from, the arts people, is the biggest thing that we hear is our kids get in trouble because they don't have anything to do.
Right.
I really think that we have to start building some programs, and working with a group like that would really
Yep.
go a long way to tell these parents who are not parenting their children that there are some options to get that reprieve and that break instead of just
Well,
turning
the
them
reality
loose.
is these things would be available till probably 6 or 7 at night. This stuff's happening at 10, 11 o'clock.
Well, but if you look at the average though, you're right, and I said this during the State of the City, the problem with, school age kids, juveniles, is between 4 and 9. That's what I looked at whenever I opened the academy, because they said, you know, you gotta find somebody, something for them to do between 4 and 9. 'cause
Well, we
that's when
talked
it's
about
critical.
Boys and Girls Club, and that's probably something we need to look at countywide.
Well, these 70-30s that Shannon's talking
Yeah.
about, I mean, those, anything that you can do to get people engaged with something, that's what we need to do. This, you know,
Shannon's got lots of ideas for what we can do out of the rec department to really help.
I mean, we've got a lot of
So we need
space.
to start, we really need to start pushing and utilizing the resources that we have to create these programs.
All right. Chief, you good?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Chief?
Looks like he's got a sidekick tonight, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So she had to sit through this whole thing? Bless
Yes,
her
ma'am,
heart.
we made her sit through the whole thing.
And she even came to the
That's your
fireworks.
initiation.
Mayor and council, this is Lydia Carney. She's our newest firefighter in the city of Lincoln, full-time firefighter in the city of Lincoln. She comes to us from
It's called Fort White. It's
Fort White.
about 45 minutes from Gainesville, Florida.
Oh.
She's a combat medic in the Army National Guard.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, that's
Glad to
awesome.
have you.
Appreciate your service.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, she had to sit through the whole meeting to be introduced.
It wasn't bad.
To be honest, it wasn't real good either.
I was excited about the art stuff.
Yeah.
There you go.
too.
That's the.
Yeah.
All right, you go. Mayor and council, if you'll bear with me a minute, I have a letter I'd like to read.
Go ahead, sir.
I know that there's been a lot of discussion recently about the Rankin Fire Department and the joint decision between the city manager and myself to shift away from utilization of volunteers in our department. After careful consideration and evaluation of our growing needs, the city manager and the fire chief did make a decision to disband the volunteer program at the Rankin Fire Department. This decision was not taken lightly, but is essential as we continue to expand and ensure consistent emergency services for our residents. By disbanding the volunteer program, we are moving towards a model where we can guarantee a dedicated number of trained professionals on every call. This change is crucial in maintaining the highest standard of emergency response our community deserves as our population and service demands increase daily. As a matter of fact, we would encourage any former volunteers to apply for full-time status in the department. We understand that the volunteer program has been a valued part of our community for many years, and we deeply appreciate the dedication and service to all the volunteers. Your commitment has been instrumental in supporting our fire department, and we are grateful for your contributions. We would like to also let everyone know that we will be recognizing the volunteers at our July 8th City Council meeting. As we transition away from the volunteer program, we remain committed to providing exceptional fire and emergency services to Rankin. We will continue to work diligently to ensure that our fire department is well equipped and staffed to handle any situation that may arise. While we are not the only fire department at the local or national level that has done this, it is personal to us because we know the volunteers have done what the volunteers have done for our department. We will continue to be here and grow in the department that every Rankin resident may be proud of. If you have any questions or concerns about our decision, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
We thank you for bringing that tonight.
Yep.
It's important. It's important that those guys know how important they are. But, it's unfortunate, it's a growing pain, you know? We talked about this, I've talked to Jonathan about this a couple times, and, you know, one of the things that we said was, you know, we don't have volunteer police officers. We don't have that because we have to make sure that we have people that are ready for duty, that is there, and a certain number of people for each shift. So it's just important that we recognize that, and obviously recognize the volunteer system, because that's how most towns and small places get started, is
Correct.
through volunteers.
Started in 1954 here.
Right.
All able-bodied males 18 to 60 had to serve in the fire department.
How about that?
Didn't know that.
In the city charter, 1954.
Nice.
I got the law books. I don't have anything else. If you guys have any questions for me.
No, do not.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recreation? I constantly, well,
But not me.
Miss Terry, you wanna come on up? I skip you.
Well, Sheena can go first.
Go
I'm
ahead,
I'm
Sheena.
already here.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
We had you up so long a while ago, I thought you told us everything. Yeah.
All right. Couple of reminders. One thing I was gonna give is the parade event update. Clearly, I was a little late. I was working on some other things. So, but, I don't know if you, Kevin, I know you were on the list because of your companies that you, registered, but I don't know if you saw the email
I did.
that I sent
read
out.
it. Yes.
Okay, so I sent out, for those that didn't, I sent out an email. Brandy, you might have seen it from the parade. I sent out an email thanking everyone for participating, on Saturday, to let them know that, you know, we hope the event was successful for them and their business, and that I wanted to reach out personally and thank each and every one of them, and that I also felt like there's always ways we can improve, and that I'm a fan of constructive criticism. I sent back and says, please, if you have any suggestions or complaints that you would like to see improvement on, feel free to reach out. And let them know they're all now part of the email list, and that they'll, you know, be included in future mailings. So, what I'll do is, once I get, you know, whatever emails over the next few days, I'll put them on a spreadsheet and send it out. So far, everything went great. We had one that talked about spreading the porta potties out more, you know, but other than that, I haven't heard anything. I know we had, for the parade, we had over 50 entries. It actually, I never thought it would, but it actually went from the start of the gate all the way to the end of the gate with the floats. So, I asked Karen to come.
When I pulled into Freedom Park, my tail was just passing St. Andrews.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And even further, cause some of them couldn't line up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
That's
so
pretty awesome.
it was great. It really turned out great. I asked Karen to be here tonight because I know that she would know what we had in the past. I had no clue what we had in the past.
Well, last year, that parking lot was about halfway full. There was hardly any floats. We had, Army band, and that was about it, and the dignitaries.
Seems like last year was like 25.
It might have been 25, but it didn't go past,
That's good.
it took up half the parking lot.
That says a lot for 3 weeks of preparation. You know, it just says a lot.
Sometimes we'd like a little bit more.
Yeah.
Listen, I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with a whole year.
Well,
Yeah.
so to piggyback off of that, Karen, we have something. Yeah. I'm on.
Say why.
For, well, I was going to, for all of her hard work. And, I'm also gonna pass out where I've already started for the holiday parade,
cause I don't wanna lose my new friend.
No,
Ben's
no, your
losing
friend.
his wife, but I don't wanna lose my new friend here. So, but we, got a couple of gift cards in here for you to treat yourselves. I know we didn't have to, but we wanted to.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I can honestly
Just
say.
I just wanna say one thing, I had a reason to do it, I really did.
Well, I'm glad you did, because you were my right-hand man and I couldn't have done it without you.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
She loves her city.
Yes, she does. So as far as that goes, this is why I was late. So I was working on, because I would like to, as Jonathan said, get a jump start. So I've kind of started with the, if you're okay with the dates, I wanted to get started on what we can do for the,
Yeah, I want to just.
Why can't we have it in December?
Well, and, you know, Brandy's.
What about?
Yeah, Brandy's right about that. One of the reasons why though, is there's a few people that they're booked up through December already. And that's why I was told to go ahead and get information in. That was the closest date to December.
At least it's after Thanksgiving
yeah.
this year.
It's not before, that's correct.
And you know, and I want us to think about this too. I know that, Shannon and I talked about this, you know, we had talked about, but it is kinda after Thanksgiving. You know, I'm not a big advocate of taking the Christmas out of it, you know, so I just wanna think about that. Just everybody up here really think about what that meaning is and determine.
Oh, we're not calling it a Christmas break?
so what my thought was, is because of, you do have Jewish, you do have
You do.
Hanukkah,
She's
you
not
do
wrong.
have other things. So, and then with that weekend being, I know that Black Friday, it's the day after Black Friday, but my thought was maybe we incorporate a holiday festival with it, where we could have vendors set up, kind of like the Christmas in the South, where we could start now, get vendors out to the park. We've reached out to try to see about maybe doing, while the parents are shopping, the kids could have a snow day on the other end of Freedom Park. So, the thought was to incorporate it, maybe do it the opposite, because I have had the, request of doing the electric parade. So we do the morning at the park, with the shopping and the snow day and, you know, bouncy houses and stuff like that, and then the evening to end with the electric parade. So that's where I'm at with my thoughts.
Chief, what do you say about that?
A nighttime parade
Don't
too.
start this. Don't, no,
Well,
we're not
let's-
getting into all that. Thank you for showing us your ideas so far, but we are not doing
Yeah, and
this tonight.
Shannon, I'm gonna ask that you don't do any permanent artwork, cause I don't like Legion of the Christmas.
Tommy has one.
Oh, I'm not, that was
Tommy's
just
a
a mock.
straight shot.
We've always had a Christmas parade, and I'd like to stay with that.
Okay,
I
that's
think our
fine.
community would.
They don't
too.
have the traffic issue at
Right.
that time of year as we do. And when I was growing up, we always had a Christmas parade in my big hometown, similar size to Savannah at that time. It was on the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Well, I've had a lot of people asking why we didn't do a night parade. I mean, and the chiefs are
Chief.
Well, all I'm saying is, it's there. If we could start like really putting our heads together, maybe have a meeting, so we're not 3 weeks into it this time.
No, let's give her more than 27 days.
Yes, please. Another thing that I would like for you guys to really think about, because we are getting a bunch of requests, is for the rentals. I had 3 or 4 today that stopped by wanting to rent, into February, March, and August of next year. I've kind of put them all on hold because I knew we were gonna discuss the fees.
Yes, we did
That's what I'm
discuss
talking about.
that. I sent some,
So, I told them all, the fees are gonna be, are under review, so I'd prefer not to rent any further out than 2 months at this point.
right.
So,
Let's go ahead and get
Well, we
some
need to
closed
have,
on that.
I have a bunch of stuff that I've been researching the surrounding area, and we're way under of what we should be. I mean, you want it to be affordable, but you gotta have it comparable to what's near you. So-
right, so, yes, and I will tell you, we did get a call today that, Effingham, I guess they just reviewed and changed their, baseball rental fees. I think it's $35 an hour, for the fields. So that's another one that we probably, cause we don't wanna get 4,000 people when we have our own programs.
Yeah.
You know, but, so we probably wanna review that as well.
Well, and when you get those people, you gotta remember too, it's what they get, so, when I rented, when,
What do we charge?
Right now, it's,
I don't know, but when we rented, it
200
was
for 3 months.
$300 or something, but I will tell you this, the bases were where they were supposed to be. If you were a team with a mound, the mound was there. Everything was drugged, so it wasn't walking out there on the field, so, if you wanna charge those rates, we have to make sure that we provide the service. So you gotta have people out there at the park whenever you have that going on, cause if you have you can try to put 13 on one field so that the bases are right, but you just gotta make sure that you provide people with a service if you wanna charge that money. And that's, it's great, I think we should.
And what Shannon and I can do is kind of put together a list of suggestions.
Yeah.
I would recommend, I'm not a huge fan of always doing a workshop. This is probably definitely the epitome of having a workshop conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
And Michelle can bring her research too.
Yes.
yes, yes.
I
She's been
took some
sending it.
down.
And my suggestion is that if we could, we should have rates for people that, cause people come in using that for a wedding, they're gonna pay a minimum of $1,200 or more for a building like that, I can promise you, especially with chairs and tables. But if we could have a reduced rate, maybe for 501Cs or things like that, so if you could look at that, we're doing that. And then the other thing is, do we have any idea when work will start at McCumber?
So right now, the ball is in EMC's court. I'll reach out to them tomorrow. When we award bids, they have to go in and process all the contracts that at this point Kevin would sign to get them started. But all the people that were awarded the bid, the two contractors, know that work needs to start and it needs to be completed before the fall sports seasons. They also know that Shannon has her contractor lined up the first week of August to come in and do the field work, so all of that.
To coordinate that.
But as Doug said, this work can actually go on simultaneously
Yes.
between
Well-
Atlantic and Pinco, whoever the company they got.
And I just wanna make sure that they don't drag their feet and then put stress on her and what she's going through, getting the fall sports ready and all that mess, so.
We will not let that happen.
We'll stay on EMC. And then I don't know if this is Shannon or you, but could we go ahead and see about getting ACC or someone in to go ahead and clear and clean that lot over there in front of the library, cause it looks awful, and get that old chain link fence down?
Absolutely, I can handle that.
I mean, cause that shouldn't be that much money.
Yeah, and I'm probably talking about that all.
I mean, let's get
Yeah,
that
we
chain
can.
link
Yeah.
fence down because you're gonna have to get it graded and cleaned anyway, so let's get ahead of the game and do that.
We got it.
Yeah.
We got it.
Okay.
Last two things is, just so you guys know, it may work, may not. I told Jonathan today, I don't know if you've seen it on the news, about, applying to work with Buddy Carter. So I submitted the application today, for him to come out, and do the 4 to 7 PM shift, and see what recreation's all about. So that
That'd be
application
awesome.
did.
That's him coming to work for us.
Yeah,
for
he
this.
comes to
That would
work.
be awesome.
Yeah, so, and then, another thought is, I know I've tossed around the idea with a couple of you, to think about, but, and I think Brandy and Michelle were the two but this was my idea that I've run by Kevin, to do for Huntley, for the inside, while we have the, person that can work with me to do it, between now and December.
So, hey, we need to hold off on that right now. I'm sorry, Shane, I didn't know about this tonight. We're still waiting on the architecture to come in and tell us what we can do in that building. I think this looks great. I absolutely would love to get there. I just don't know what the walls entail right now.
Well, no, we're looking
To
at
get that
complete
moving.
renovation of that building.
Yeah, so.
This was free labor.
And I know Shana's got a great inmate that can come in and do these things. I know
Well, the
we're
only
ready to
cost
do
is
it, but
the
I don't want to
materials.
have to redo
Yes.
it.
This is just a material cost and
That'd be less than.
Well, but we've got
$1,000
that garage that needs some, that could be probably
Because the floor is-
incorporated in it, and,
Yeah.
main room.
you know, you can incorporate that garage in there with the right construction and.
I was just talking about the main room for right now, to get by, and then they could finish
To
it up.
update it,
Yeah.
freshen it up so that it can be used for more
Just because it was
community
free,
rate.
yeah,
Yeah.
just because
I mean,
it was
if
free
they can
labor.
do this and it looks like this
So
when
we
they're
won't be
done.
outside done, I mean, it's old
I mean,
and,
I understand that, this is free labor. Saves us money in the long run, right?
and doing it twice, well,
Anyway,
Okay, we'll talk about it, we'll talk about it.
Thank you, Shannon.
workshop.
All right, Public Works.
Tim.
Tim?
Go back to Terry.
Terry. Not gonna do it again.
and then, I guess we can add this to the workshop that Karen and I were talking about, if we could get a date, to work with Tara to do the picnic at the golf course.
Oh, that'd be nice.
People are on us about it, so.
Picnic in the park.
Picnic in the park, yeah.
70-30, 70-30, Shannon.
I'm gonna email you guys about it. Maybe Shannon will talk about that. We could have Merle do the hot dog.
I'm sorry.
No, you have seen me a lot tonight, so.
Shannon, Tim, Terry.
So we continue to work on the Unified Development Ordinance, the comprehensive plan. The first draft of that should be to y'all, either at the end of this week or next week. It'll be kind of the rough draft to start, and then it'll get prettied up, but this will be like all the updated data and everything like that. Got a bunch of projects in the works that are in the staff review level, and we expect those to start moving through planning and zoning, and then to y'all in the next couple months. Devin continues to go out and ride around the city all day long and get
So-
compliance, so.
I had something that I don't wanna forget, I wrote it at the top of this. I'd sent an email out not too long ago because we had a comb with a note on it that was sitting in the
Yes.
middle of the hole.
Yes, he's already addressed you.
And he grabbed it, but this is the thing. I got another email that somebody hit it again, hit the hole again, cause we went out and pulled a sign out because we thought, oh, they're being smart about it. I feel like, I know we can't do it all the time, but somehow we can't allow them to take this much time to repair a hole. They purposely just sit on it, so.
My thought on that is, they want the hole there, so when people damage the car.
Yeah, they pull in. So what I would suggest is, once we tell them one time, let's go ahead and cold patch it. It's not gonna last forever. We'll cold patch it for them, and then we're gonna send them the labor and the cost of everything that we do.
Now, just out of curiosity, and unfortunately Terry was out last week, so I can kind of
Yeah.
jump in. Are you talking about the same person that hit the same hole twice?
No, it was a different person.
We've got one that has hit the same hole twice.
Yeah, no,
And
different person.
we tell them, hey, that's private
Yeah.
property, we can go after them, but your damages are with them.
Yeah.
And not with the city, but yes,
Yeah.
I
The
think the
first
one
person
from
hit
Rutland
that hole.
has been patched. I think that one's been patched now.
Oh, the other one over there.
If it hasn't been patched today, then it should be patched
They were
tomorrow.
supposed to do it today.
The Rutland one, so
Rutland?
we've been,
Yeah.
Devin's been staying on top of them.
Yeah.
You know, there was some budget, I know it's not, you know, very, very expensive, but just like everybody else, like they've got budgets and they had to wait till they had somebody to do that. But
Yeah.
I agree, like it can't last,
Yeah, you can't.
as long as that one
is nasty.
got.
And the one at CVS is worse. And I mean, if you're gonna operate a business, I mean, if you don't have the money to operate a business, I'm sorry, I can't. But you gotta stay in compliance. And so we can't keep, just, okay, we'll let it go another month till you guys, because we're getting beat up out there over this.
Well, Jonathan, my thing is with all of this, it's just like with the stadium light lady that went on for a whole year. I think this road's been going on for years. These things, all of them are taking too long. Why is it we don't go out and give them a ticket, and if they don't fix it in so many days, they get a fine.
So we have to do things a certain way. We have to give them a chance to fix it, and depending on the severity, we're trying to make sure that once it gets in here, in front of a judge, we have done everything, and they start getting excited, because sometimes the quote-unquote crazy stadium light lady, that's the only way people learn, so once they start getting these tickets and getting it here.
And to
Oh,
be
she
fair,
had
we
one.
didn't have a code enforcement officer when we
No,
started
let me
hearing
tell you
about
something.
these problems.
Yeah, when
We
we-
were getting bombarded with it
Yeah,
before.
that one's been talked about, that area's been talked about since I was on here the first time, when we didn't have a code enforcement officer, and people were just recognizing those spots. And I'll tell you, they got better in front of the strip mall, right around the corner. Those guys actually went out, done the repair, but that one has been terrible for a long time.
And we're, as a staff, and Devin's been doing a great job, and Terry's been doing a great job leading that, we are becoming more aggressive.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a prime example, the car lot beside City Hall. You had 10 days, on day 11, they're getting tickets and then telling everybody they wanna leave the city, because they're now being held accountable.
That's right.
We actually have that now, and it's taken a while to get that in, but we are not giving another 10 days after 10 days after
That's
10
right.
days. If you're making progress, they will absolutely work with you. But
That's
if you're
right.
ignoring everything,
Yes.
you're gonna be right here in front of a judge. Merle, I'm not even gonna lie, Merle hates it, because guess how he's writing tickets.
Yeah, right, he's had it right.
Not for too much longer, not for too much longer.
But so, yeah, we're becoming very aggressive.
Yeah,
in
that
getting
hole in front of Rutland is, I know we got a code enforcement officer, but we're about 2 inches from needing to hire a lifeguard.
We're about 2 inches from Tim having to go out there and crawling the hole.
But, all right, anything else?
Terry, on average, how many citations is Devin writing up himself?
Well, so he doesn't write any yet, we're working on that,
He's just giving
procedure,
out
there
warnings.
are a few things that have to get into
Right,
place
right,
for
I
him to
know. But he hasn't-
actually be able to write the citation, so when he identifies that he is not gonna get compliance at all, then he coordinates with the police department, and an officer meets him at the site, and then they write a citation.
So how do we get it to where he gets to write it?
So there's a legal process to that.
Okay.
because-
And
we're
they're
already-
working- They're
yes.
working with legal to get that.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we're
Moving
already.
in the right direction.
Yes, we're already working on that part, but to answer your question, I mean, we've probably been about maybe 1 to 2 a month, cause again, a lot of places, when he stops by, they'll come into compliance.
They go ahead
We've
and
been, we've had people that call and they're real fussy about it, and then they call back in an hour and they're like, okay, I'll come into compliance by, next week or what, so we're
Right.
getting compliance, and I think the fact that they
Well,
see
that's good.
him
I'd rather see
driving
him come in
around.
compliant
Then
than
fine.
come get a
Yeah.
fine or,
Oh,
come
absolutely.
through the door.
It's better for all of us, so, cause then the problem gets fixed.
And Devin's doing a great job, cause I went in there the other day with something, and the minute I said it, he picked up his keys and stuff, and looked at Terry, he says, I'll be back in a little bit. He was
Mhm.
out the door on it, so
Yep.
he's doing a great job.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Works, Tim?
Minute of written report available for any questions.
Tim's tired, we're all tired.
We're
We're all tired.
Thank you for that tonight, Tim.
Yeah. And look, Tommy's even here.
Tommy?
Yes, sir.
Come on up.
I submitted a report, I'm here for any questions. Appreciate
One
it.
thing, Mr. Keys, I'd like to see, you got on there your ammonia and phosphorus.
Yes, sir.
Reporting limit, what you report. Can you put the limits on that too?
Yes, sir.
So what, it says, say phosphorus is 0.05 milligrams per
Uh-huh.
liter. If the limit is 0.1 per liter, I just wanna see that.
Yes,
So
sir.
So I see where we're at.
Just so you know, yeah,
That's all
what we're
I need.
doing. Yes.
As far as the reuse to the golf course what's a standard amount? Because I'm
I
new,
got some
so what would a standard be? Is this the standard? Is this higher? Is it lower?
Well,
It's,
Depends
I
on
can answer that
rain.
too, Mr. Keys, cause, that meter was broken for so long, that we're just now getting
Yeah, we don't know
the
what the
data to
standard
do
is. Yep.
that.
So-
It also depends on the weather and what Joe out at the golf
So-
course.
And
how
he
much
has-
used the
I've got a
irrigator.
number from him.
Yeah.
In May, he used just over 2 million gallons of
Mhm.
reused water. Now that we've got everything that we can track at that golf
Yeah.
course.
and he's hammering it right now.
Yeah, so we're rocking it, they're doing
Yeah,
good.
cause it's hadn't rained that much.
Listen,
Well, and you
they
have to do
ordered
that with
tables
spring.
at Greenside one night.
Some golf carts got washed.
So this number
Nothing
right
wrong
here,
with
though,
that.
might go up, triple for the
All
G
right.
report.
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Thank you, Steve. Finance. Rankin Golf Course.
Yeah, before, you got any questions?
Poor Tara was at the end.
That's what you should have said. I submitted.
I got before you got anything.
My foot was going to sleep, so I was leaving up. It's been a long meeting, y'all felt sorry for her. Nobody feels sorry for us. I got confused on that. Anyway,
Tara's
Joe-
ready to go.
I'm fine. Joe couldn't be here tonight. He didn't tell me what to say, but, the greens are back open. He did a great job. Things are looking great. We've had good feedback, oddly enough. A lot of good comments, nothing negative as far as that goes. We got a new sign for the building. The doors are in, complete, beautiful. The website is taking a little longer, but it should be up and running this week or next week. We have 135 members. And we enjoyed the parade. We all did. We were excited that we were asked to do it, and it was fun. It was a good team building thing, and I think everybody should do it for that reason, really. But we look forward to doing the next one. That's about it.
I wanted to add that I had a call from a guy from the county, and he stated to me that we probably had 200 members, is what he told me, going over to Statesboro to membership over there. And he said, man, with all the things that I'm hearing you guys are doing, he said, I think that stuff's gonna start moving back here. And he told me, he said, I'd love to just come ride out with you. So I told him, I said, yeah, I have no problem with that. So I'll probably connect him with these guys and let him ride out, because at least it's starting to circulate into other areas of our county, which is important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Tara.
And I do hate to bring it up, but Bobo and I each have a quick thing for executive session.
Oh, does anybody up here have anything that they wanna add?
No.
Okay.
All
All
I
right.
asked all my questions
Nope.
today at City Hall.
So do we have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Ms. Underwood, second by Mr. Blackwell to move into executive session. Thank you. All in favor? Oh, sorry. All in favor? Here we go.
That was me being secretary.
I've got time.
Yes. Ben told us to take that off.
No, it was something about
And he was like, why you got that on there? And I was like, we don't need it. He was like, no, he said, we're going to executive session. Doing the affidavit.
I just remember there being something else.
Yes,
No, that's
yes.
not what we're talking about. All right, we're not ready for that. Come on, we'll wait.
Bye, Terry. Bye, Diana. Shannon, get some rest.
I'm trying.
Yeah. But we knew that the second one's always gonna be long.
Listen, when I sat here with this packet.
Well, it's on the
for 5
packet.
hours today, I knew it was
The code, and then, yeah.
And then we have the.
That was